The silver locket shimmered just enough to catch Jonathan Reyes' eye through the windshield. A boy no older than 12 darted between honking cars on 6th Avenue, selling gum from a battered cardboard box. But it wasn't the boy that made Jonathan's heart stop. It was the necklace. The same delicate silver chain, the same rose-shaped charm, the one he gave his daughter the night before she vanished. For a moment, time slowed. Traffic noise drowned beneath the pounding in his ears. He threw open the door, bolted into the street, and screamed after the boy, "Where did you get that necklace?" Welcome to A Story That Lingers. Before we continue, let us know in the comments, where are you watching? If these stories resonate with you, please hit that subscribe button to support the channel, because tomorrow we'll have another special story for you. Just 48 hours ago, Jonathan Reyes was still clinging to hope. Hope that his 13-year-old daughter, Isla, had simply run away. That maybe she'd argue her way back through the door with flushed cheeks and flimsy excuses. But that hope had been wearing thin, and today it snapped entirely. He hadn't even meant to stop at that light. He was only in the city to meet with the NYPD for the third time that week. Another dead end. Another polite shoulder shrug. The officers said they were doing their best. But Jonathan had built billion-dollar tech empires he knew when someone wasn't really trying. And then in a twist of fate, a moment that should have meant nothing changed everything. There he was, the kid. Short, wiry frame, wild curls poking from under a baseball cap. He weaved like a pro between bumpers, hawking cheap candy to angry commuters. But it was that glint of silver on his chest, bouncing in and out of view, that glued Jonathan's eyes to him. He'd bought Isla that locket on her 12th birthday. A silver rose charm, custom engraved, one of a kind. She'd never taken it off, not even once. Jonathan threw the Mercedes into park, ignoring the honking behind him, and ran. "Hey," he shouted. "Hey, kid, stop!" The boy looked back startled, then sprinted. Jonathan chased him through the crosswalk between cars onto the sidewalk. People yelled. One man cursed, but he didn't care. All he could see was Isla's necklace bouncing on the boy's chest like a beacon. After a block, the boy ducked into an alley between two brick buildings. Jonathan followed, panting, his heart ready to rip through his ribs. "Please," he called. "I don't want to hurt you. I just need to know where you got that necklace." A shadow stirred. The boy peeked from behind a dumpster, gripping the locket tight. "Why do you care?" he asked, voice sharp with suspicion. Jonathan lowered his hands. "Because it belonged to my daughter, Isla. She's missing." The boy's expression changed, not to fear, but something else. Recognition. "She said you'd come looking," he said quietly. Jonathan froze. "What?" "She told me to find her dad," the boy whispered. "She gave me this and said you'd know." Jonathan took a cautious step forward. "Where is she?" The boy hesitated, then nodded once. "She's hurt, but alive. I can take you." Jonathan's knees nearly gave out. "Who are you?" he asked. "Name's Tyler," the boy said. "I'm just some kid, but I think your daughter saved my life." He turned and started walking deeper into the alley. And just like that, Jonathan Reyes, a man who had everything, followed a street kid into the unknown, clinging to the one thing he'd almost lost completely: hope. Tyler didn't say much as they moved through the maze of alleys and side streets. The sun had dipped low, casting long shadows over graffiti-tagged brick and rusted fences. Jonathan stayed close, hyper-aware of every sound: a clattering trash can, a distant siren, the hum of subway tracks below. They boarded an old train at 125th Street. Tyler slumped in a corner seat, pulling the brim of his cap lower over his eyes. Jonathan sat across from him, gripping the locket like it might disappear. "How long have you had it?" he asked quietly. Tyler shrugged. 3 days. She gave it to me the night I found her." Jonathan's breath caught. Found her. She was in this abandoned basement in the Bronx. Cold, bruised, scared out of her mind. "I thought she was dead at first." The words stabbed into Jonathan like glass. Tyler glanced up. "She said not to call the cops. Said they'd find her again." "Who?" Jonathan demanded. "Who would find her?" "She didn't say names, just she was hiding from someone she trusted." That made the hair on Jonathan's neck stand. Isla had always been cautious. For her to say that, to trust a stranger like Tyler more than the police, something was very, very wrong. They got off at a quiet station in the South Bronx and walked 3 more blocks. Tyler stopped outside an old tenement with boarded-up windows and a crumbling stoop. "She's down here," he said, pulling a loose piece of plywood from a basement door. "We kept it blocked so nobody would come in." The stairwell smelled of mildew and dust. Jonathan's feet felt like they were dragging anvils. Isla, Tyler called gently. I brought someone. A rustle. A small movement behind a mattress leaned against the far wall. Then she appeared. Isla Reyes. Her hair was tangled. Her hoodie hung off her frame like a sack. There was a dark bruise beneath her eye, a scrape along her cheekbone. But it was her. Jonathan nearly collapsed. Daddy? He crossed the room in seconds, dropping to his knees. He held her like he never wanted to let go again. I've got you, he whispered into her hair. You're safe. I've got you. She didn't cry, not right away, but when her fingers curled around his shirt, she began to shake. After a while, she leaned back and looked up at him. I thought he was our friend, she said. Jonathan froze. Who? Uncle Greg. Gregory Vaughn, his best friend, COO of Reyes Technologies, godfather to his only daughter. The man who insisted they delay going public, who told Jonathan to let the police do their job, who called every day offering empty reassurances. Jonathan's blood turned to ice. He took you, he asked. Isla nodded slowly. He said, you were too powerful, that taking me would ruin you. Said you'd fall apart, and when you did, he'd take everything. Jonathan felt the air leave his lungs. Greg, his best man, his brother in all but blood, had orchestrated this. You're safe now, he promised, gripping Isla's hand. He won't get away with this. But even as he said it, a sick realization twisted in his gut. Greg didn't just want to hurt him emotionally. He wanted control over Jonathan's empire, his wealth, his name. And the police? If they hadn't found Isla by now, it wasn't incompetence. It was obstruction. Tyler sat quietly nearby, watching the father-daughter reunion, like it was something sacred. He'd given up warmth, food, and safety to protect a stranger. Jonathan met his eyes. Thank you, he said. Tyler gave a small nod. She saved me first. Jonathan pulled out his phone, but Isla's hand shot forward. Don't, she whispered. They're watching everything. She pointed to the ceiling. I think he's got someone. Maybe more than one. He said he owns half the force. Maybe more. Jonathan stared at the cracked concrete. This wasn't just a kidnapping. This was war. And he was already 2 steps behind. Jonathan paced the basement floor long after Isla fell asleep, curled beneath a pile of old blankets Tyler had scavenged. His daughter's breathing was shallow, strained. She hadn't eaten much, hadn't asked for anything. Every time she stirred in her sleep, she flinched. He stared at her and felt something rupture inside him. He had built systems that powered half the East Coast, had CEOs and senators on speed dial. But here he was, powerless, hiding in a rotting basement, with the only thing that mattered to him, asleep and broken. Tyler sat nearby, knees pulled to his chest. She was scared to sleep alone, he murmured. Jonathan turned. You stayed with her this whole time? Yeah, Tyler said. Didn't feel right leaving her. She was shivering, whispering stuff in her sleep. About someone watching her. Jonathan swallowed. He couldn't say thank you again, it felt hollow. Instead he asked, where do you live? Tyler smirked without humor. Here and there. Mostly nowhere. You have family? He shook his head. Jonathan stared at the boy, heart heavy. He had always dismissed kids like Tyler Street kids. Runaways. Trouble. And yet in 3 days, Tyler had done more for Isla than the entire New York Police Department. He made a decision. Come with us, he said. Tyler looked stunned. What? When we leave here. You're coming with us. You saved her life. I'm not leaving you behind. Tyler blinked, then looked down. Don't promise stuff you don't mean. I don't, Jonathan said quietly. At dawn, Jonathan snuck out using Tyler's instructions. He'd memorized a back route through alleys and fences to a prepaid phone kiosk. It felt ridiculous, like some spy thriller. But if what Isla said was true, Greg had eyes everywhere. He bought 2 burner phones and used the second one to call someone he trusted implicitly, Lana Brooks. A former prosecutor turned civil rights attorney, Lana had represented whistleblowers, journalists, and political dissidents, people with everything to lose and no one left to trust. She was smart, fearless, and ruthless when necessary, and she owed Jonathan a favor. When she picked up, her voice was groggy. Reyes. What the hell? I found her, he whispered. Isla's alive, I need you. Silence. Then where are you? He gave her the cross street 3 blocks from the safe house and hung up. An hour later, she arrived. No questions, no briefcase, just sunglasses, coffee, and a mind sharp enough to cut glass. Jonathan led her back and watched as she knelt beside Isla. Her eyes darkened at the bruises, the dirt under her nails. She needs a doctor, Lana murmured. Now. We can't go to a hospital. I know, Lana said. I'll make some calls. In the meantime, we need to talk about Vaughn. Jonathan nodded. He's behind this. I figured. He's been moving pieces for weeks quietly but with force. Press releases hinting at your declining capacity. Leaked memos. You've been framed to look unstable. Jonathan clenched his fists. And the police? Compromise, she said. Vaughn's connected to Senator Rowland. Deep money ties, real estate, blackmail. He's been grooming this for years. You were just the last piece. Jonathan felt like the ground was shifting beneath him. What do we do, he asked. Lana straightened. We fight back, but carefully. She pulled out a recorder and a legal notepad. Isla needs to tell her story, not to the cops, to me, and we build from there. Tyler perked up. Wait, you believe her just like that? Lana looked at him. I've put dirty cops in prison. You learn to read eyes. And that girl, she's telling the truth. Tyler nodded slowly. Something in him loosened, a little trust, a little hope. As Lana began her interview, Jonathan stepped outside the first real sunlight, hitting his face in daze. Across the street, a black SUV idled. Tinted windows. Engine running. He turned to go back inside but froze. In the reflection of a car mirror, he saw the briefest glint, the flash of a camera lens. They'd been found, and the clock was ticking. Jonathan didn't hesitate. He ducked back into the basement, bolted the door, and yanked the plywood across the entrance. His voice was low but sharp. Someone's watching. Black SUV, they found us. Lana stood up instantly. We need to move now. Tyler grabbed the backpacks they'd prepared earlier. Peanut butter sandwiches, water bottles, flashlights, extra clothes. Isla stirred from her thin mattress, blinking against the dim light. We're leaving, Jonathan said gently. But I need you to be brave a little longer, okay? She nodded. No tears this time. Just a quiet, heavy resolve in her eyes. They slipped out the back exit and followed the maze of alleys Tyler knew like veins in his hand. Behind them, tires screeched. Voices barked into radios. But the city was on their side. Shadows, noise, chaos, endless turns. By the time they reached an abandoned laundromat on Tremont Avenue, Jonathan was soaked in sweat. Lana had arranged a safe room, cash-only off-grid, known only to a handful of underground contacts. Inside, a trauma nurse awaited them. She tended to Isla with a gentle efficiency, her hands calm even as she peeled back a bandage and winced at the bruising. This was a heavy blow, she murmured. Could have been fractured ribs. Isla barely reacted. Tyler stayed near her the entire time, handing her water, whispering dumb jokes. It was the only time she smiled, a real one, fleeting and faint, but real. While the nurse worked, Lana and Jonathan sat at the back, poring over a folder of evidence. Lana flipped through photos, timestamps, emails. This is more than corruption, she whispered. Greg's running an entire trafficking network. Girls, boys, mostly runaways or foster kids. No paper trails, just shadows. Jonathan's stomach turned. Was Isla? No, Lana said quickly. I think she was leverage. You were the prize. Vaughn knew hurting your family would break you. It was never about the ransom, it was about destroying you. Jonathan looked across the room at his daughter, pale, thin, but alive. He couldn't lose her again. What do we do, he asked. Lana leaned forward. We broadcast the truth, bypass the system, public exposure. I've contacted a journalist at the Ledger. They're not afraid of power. Jonathan shook his head. It's not enough. He owns too much, controls too many. Then we hit where it hurts reputation, stock price, investor confidence. I'll subpoena the internal records. You leak the story, he'll crumble before he can bury us. Jonathan opened his phone. A new notification popped up. Urgent CEO Jonathan Reyes missing. Police suspect breakdown. Reyes Technologies stock plummets 12%. He showed it to Lana. He's already started. Then we move faster, she said. They agreed they'd get Isla somewhere safe, far from the city, while Jonathan went public. Tyler refused to leave her side. I'll go wherever she goes, he said simply. Isla looked at him, then at her father. I trust him, she whispered. That was enough. At midnight, Lana arranged a secure van driven by one of her trusted contacts. She handed Jonathan a burner phone. Next time you call, it's to go live, she said. No delays, no denials, just truth. He nodded. The van rolled out with Isla and Tyler curled up in the back seat and the nurse watching over them like a hawk. Jonathan stood in the alley watching until the taillights disappeared. He turned to Lana. Let's burn him down. 3 days later, the world changed. Jonathan stood in a private recording studio Lana had secured through a former client, a whistleblower turned tech entrepreneur. Thick, soundproof panels lined the walls. Cameras were rigged lights set to a soft, honest tone. No branding, no logos. Just a father sitting on a stool, heart cracked wide open. The plan was simple. Jonathan would speak the truth unrehearsed, raw. Lana would edit it lightly, then feed it to the ledger, who would live stream the full interview. The evidence files, including Isla's testimony, Tyler's witness account, and Greg's financial records would be uploaded in real time alongside it. The world would either listen or look away. Jonathan glanced once more at the screen. A blinking red light. Rolling. He inhaled slowly and began. My name is Jonathan Reyes. I'm a father, a founder, and until recently I was the CEO of Reyes Technologies. 3 weeks ago my daughter disappeared. The police told me she ran away, that I was overreacting, that I needed rest. But they were wrong, and they knew it. He paused, voice steady. My daughter was taken by someone I trusted more than anyone. Gregory Vaughn, my best friend, my company's chief operating officer. He leaned forward, eyes burning. He didn't want money. He wanted control. He wanted to watch me fall apart. He orchestrated every detail, used his ties to the police, to politicians, to media, all to cover up a deeper, darker secret. He picked up a folder and held it to the camera. This is proof of an underground trafficking network operated under the guise of legal real estate holdings. Over 24 children, most of them still missing. All of it hidden behind shell companies tied directly to Vaughn. The red light blinked. Jonathan's voice cracked just slightly. I found my daughter in a basement, starved, hurt, terrified, but alive. And she wasn't alone. A 13-year-old boy named Tyler, someone most people would ignore, protected her with everything he had. He nodded, like sending a message to the boys somewhere out there watching. He reminded me of something I forgot: that character isn't measured by your title or your income. It's measured by what you do when no one's watching. He closed the folder. I won't stay silent, not anymore. And if something happens to me after this broadcast, if I disappear, you'll know why. He stared straight into the lens. Do not let this story fade. Do not let my daughter's voice get drowned out. Because if it happened to us, it's happening to someone else. The red light faded. Silence. Lana exhaled sharply. It's perfect. They uploaded the footage, embedded the files, and sent the link to the ledger's encrypted inbox. Then they waited. It took exactly 37 minutes. The video exploded. Twitter trended year-to-year Reyes testimony within the hour. Reddit threads lit up with timelines, theory maps, and frame-by-frame breakdowns. Influencers reposted the clip. Survivors reached out. Politicians tried to downplay it, but the facts were too solid. Gregory Vaughn released a statement calling it a desperate man's delusion, but it didn't matter, because someone leaked the sealed police reports. Then the missing foster records. Then the internal Reyes Tech emails Vaughn had scrubbed or thought he had. By nightfall, Vaughn's estate was surrounded by media trucks. Protesters lined the sidewalk. He was arrested the next morning, trying to flee via private jet. Lana called Jonathan, voice trembling with vindication. They got him. Jonathan didn't respond right away. He was staring at his phone at a photo Isla had just sent. She and Tyler were on a porch somewhere, quiet sunsetting behind them. She was smiling. Not forced, not afraid. Real. He finally replied, good. But the fight wasn't over. Because exposing the rot was just the beginning. It wasn't over, not even close. The arrest of Gregory Vaughn sent shockwaves through the tech world, law enforcement, and politics. But what no one expected, not even Jonathan, was the sheer scope of what had been hidden. Within days of the broadcast, whistleblowers began stepping forward. Foster care workers, internal auditors, even a retired NYPD detective who had once worked Vaughn's missing child cases revealed that certain reports were intentionally buried or lost. News anchors called it the Manhattan Underground. Protesters flooded City Hall. A class action lawsuit was filed on behalf of over 40 minors. But for Jonathan, the noise faded to the background. He was somewhere quieter now. A farmhouse on the outskirts of Vermont. No press, no phones, just space, quiet, and healing. He stepped out onto the porch one morning with 2 cups of cocoa in his hands. Isla was already outside wrapped in a big gray hoodie staring across the foggy field. She'd barely said 10 words that week, but he didn't mind. He handed her a cup. "Thanks," she murmured. He nodded. They stood in silence. Then Isla broke it. "You're not going back, are you, to the company?" Jonathan took a breath. "No, it's not mine anymore. Not really." She nodded slowly. "Good." He looked at her. "How are you feeling?" Isla was quiet a long moment. Then, like, "I've got a million pieces I'm trying to glue back together." He sat beside her. "You don't have to do it alone." "I know," she smiled faintly. "Tyler's been helping." Jonathan grinned. "I noticed." Tyler had adjusted to life off the streets like someone breathing fresh air after years underground. He helped around the property, read constantly, and had a surprisingly sharp mind for fixing things. Every time something broke, a pipe, a door hinge, an old radio, he was on it before anyone else noticed. At first, he'd seemed skittish, waiting for the other shoe to drop. But over time, he softened. One evening, Jonathan found him on the porch holding something in his palm. Isla's necklace. The same one Vaughn had given her, stolen from their home, the one Jonathan had designed years ago, with her initials carved into the pendant. "I was gonna sell it," Tyler admitted, "when I first found her. I didn't know who she was, just that she looked scared. But then she clutched it in her sleep. Like it was the only thing keeping her together. So I gave it back." Jonathan swallowed hard. "Thank you." Tyler looked up. "I didn't do it for thanks." "I know," Jonathan said. "That's why it matters." Weeks passed, then months. Isla began attending therapy with a specialist. Tyler enrolled in an online high school program, one Jonathan paid for without question. And the world kept turning. Gregory Vaughn pled guilty to dozens of counts. The full network unraveled like a tapestry. Several senators resigned. One was arrested. And the Ledger won a Pulitzer. But Jonathan kept his distance. He focused instead on what came next, not for his reputation, but for his daughter, and for the boy who had saved her. One evening, he found Isla in the living room sketching. Tyler was asleep on the floor, books scattered around him. She looked up and grinned. "I drew something." He leaned over. It was a picture of the farmhouse, warm and soft, with three figures sitting on the porch, a man, a girl, and a boy with a baseball cap. "Is this us?" "Yeah," she said. "It's our beginning." Jonathan couldn't speak, just nodded, heart full. For the first time in a long time, the silence in his chest wasn't pain. It was peace. The leaves were turning when Jonathan finally returned to the city. He walked down Fifth Avenue, not in a suit, not in a car, just a simple coat, his hands in his pockets. The world was different now, or maybe he just saw it differently. The lights, the people, the hum of life he used to think it was power. But now he saw something else, fragility, and underneath it, resilience. He passed the corner where he'd once sat, frozen behind the wheel of his Mercedes, staring in disbelief at a boy wearing his daughter's necklace. That moment, seared in his memory, had unraveled everything and saved her life. He found himself near a bookstore. Inside, a display caught his eye. When Silence Breaks, the story of a father and daughter in a city that looked away. It was Lana's book. She hadn't told him she was publishing it. He picked it up, flipped through, and saw a chapter titled, "The Boy on Fifth Avenue." A small note tucked inside the cover read, "I waited until you were ready. Now the world is Atom." He smiled. Later that day, he walked to the courthouse steps where he and Lana stood together for the press. She looked sharper than ever, her suit tailored, her voice strong. But when she turned to him, it was just Lana, the friend who never let go. "This time, we're not just reacting," she said. "We're building something. A foundation for victims, education, support, legal aid, real change." Jonathan nodded. "Count me in." That evening, he boarded a train back to Vermont. The farmhouse lights were glowing when he arrived. From the porch, Isla waved. Tyler sat beside her, strumming softly on a guitar they'd picked up at a flea market. Dinner was warm and simple: grilled cheese, tomato soup, and stories told under soft lamplight. Afterward, Isla pulled something from her hoodie pocket. It was the necklace. "I want you to have it," she said, pressing it into Jonathan's palm. He opened his mouth to protest, but she shook her head. "You kept looking when no one else did. You held on to me even when I didn't know who I was." He looked down at the worn silver chain. It had been bent, battered, nearly lost, but it had survived. Like all of them. He placed it around his neck, not as a symbol of what was lost, but of what was found. That night, under a blanket of stars, the three of them sat on the porch again. No headlines, no chaos. Just the crackle of a fire and the quiet breathing of people who had endured hell and come home. And maybe that's what love really is, not the absence of pain, but the presence of people who stay, who see, who believe. If this story touched your heart, pause a moment. Think about the ones we pass by every day. The kids on corners, the silent voices, the pain we choose not to see. Maybe there's someone you can listen to, someone you can look out for. And if you believe in stories that matter, stories that heal, that reveal, that connect, we invite you to subscribe, share, and stay a while. Because sometimes a story isn't just a story. It's a lifeline.